Welcome to this edition of Tasty Bytes, where it is our goal to teach you one thing about Photoshop in 5 minutes or less. Today we're going to be looking at what I call training the quick selection tool. So we're going to be dealing with this little guy right here, one of your selection tools, the quick selection tool. W is the shortcut key. As you can see right here, I've got mine set up so sample all layers and auto enhance is turned off. So if you're working on a high contrast image where there's a big difference between what the background is and what your selection is, using the quick selection tool is absolutely no problem. Simple, fast, and easy. But what about when you're working on an image that isn't high contrast and where the edges of the background are similar to the selection you're trying to make? Well, sometimes when you're working in those situations, this is what happens. Your selection spills over into the edge of your background, what you're not trying to select, because the tonality is similar. So you can come in, and when that happens, you can hold down your Alt or Option key and you can backtrack, and that's usually fairly effective. But sometimes when it keeps happening, you'll find that it's easier to do what I call training your selection tool. Now, in essence, what you're doing is you're telling your little selection tool, I want this color pixel, but I don't want these colors of pixel. So you can start your selection, just make one small run with it, and then come up to the top of your image or wherever it is you don't want selected. Hold down your Alt key or your Option key and just drag along the edge of your selection. You don't have to be real precise, so just while you're holding down that key all the time, drag along there. Come over here to the other side or whatever you want. You don't have to do the whole selection. And what you've just done is you've told Photoshop, I don't want those pixels selected. Then you come back up and you just run down your selection, and you'll find that it makes that selection much smoother, much quicker, much easier, and without having the spillage that you would normally get. So that's just a handy little trick to have sometimes when you're making selections and you're working on a detailed selection. You constantly find that you're popping off the edge of your selection and going into the background. Those are times when this little trick is very handy to have. This is another example of an image where these images were not chosen because they're great images. They were chosen because this is what happens with them, because the tonality is so similar. Now, I was trying to select this little bar, the section of this bar right here. But every time I try and do that, no matter how careful I get, it jumps out because of all the tonality. So once again, I come in here, start my selection, hold down my Alt key or Option key, drag right along the edges of what I don't want selected, come back, make my selection much cleaner. I picked up a little bit in there, you can see, very easy to fix. Of course you'd have to clean up these edges, but you get the idea, the general principle, and the whole point of this is that you can teach your selection tool by using the Alt key, which basically says, I don't want these pixels, to only choose the pixels that you want. So once again, another edition of Tasty Bytes, training the quick selection tool. Hope you learned something, and we'll see you on the next one.